Mowbray. Welcome to my podcast.
I love how you've got notes as well.
I've got so many notes.
Okay, sorry. Do you want to start again?
No, are we good to go? First of all, I've done so much research about you in anticipation of you. Thanks for coming on.
You are so welcome. Thanks for having me.
Well, your team reached out to me and said, would you want Anna on? And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? I'd love to. So,
I won't hold it against them, actually.
But from what I can gather, this is your first ever non-business podcast?
Yeah, it is. You're the lucky man.
Well, I appreciate that. So I had to sit through a whole lot of podcasts that you've been on about business deals in China and stuff that's way above my pay grade.
Well, hopefully there was some little nugget in there that you enjoyed.
So why now? Why would you want to do like a more personality-based podcast?
Look, I just think that your podcast is great for a start. You're good value, good fun, and I think you bring out the best in people. So why not?
Well, I appreciate that. That is my goal. I have two main goals. One of them is to make sure all the guests have a really good experience, but also it's got to be a good listening experience as well, because otherwise,
Otherwise you're in trouble, aren't you?
What's the point?
You got the follower numbers.
So
you still have Kanye though, who'd be supporting you.
He is the best. I'm obsessed with him. First of all, couple of random ones. What's your favourite Taylor Swift song?
Oh, I'm not much of a muso. I did go to Taylor Swift, but I'm not actually that much of a muso. I went there because I think it made my children realise and appreciate that they have to work hard to get to things like Taylor Swift. So they were incredibly jealous that I got to go, but that's all about setting up aspirations for them. I know, it's kind of mean, but at the same time, you've got to build desire in your children, right? So that they actually sit back and say, I've got to work hard to achieve these things.
So you had VIP tickets. What does that mean? Where are you?
I don't even know, actually. I went with my girlfriend Liv, who is absolutely obsessed with Taylor. And I think it was a couple of months out, and she was like, I'd just love to go to Taylor Swift. Will you come with me? I was like, absolutely, I'll be there. I'll be there with you, no problem at all. And then she spent the next couple of weeks trying to get tickets, couldn't get tickets. And I was in the office one day, and I turned around and I go, I've got couple of weekends away blocked out of my calendar to go over to Aussie to go listen to Taylor, but unfortunately I don't have tickets. And he's like, you want tickets? And I was like, yeah, well, that'd be great. I mean, Liv would be over the moon if we got tickets. And so he picks up the phone, calls a buddy, and gets me tickets. And the next thing you know, I'm on the phone to Liv, and I'm like, hey babe, we're off. We're going to Sydney. And so we went and watched. It was fantastic. I mean, she is an incredible performer. She's definitely quite productionised in her approach to things, but that's what makes her great. And she knows how to connect with her community in a way that I've never experienced before. Oh, she's like a one-person mega church. Yeah. It's crazy. So you're not even a fan. You did it to spite your kids, pretty. No, I didn't really. But that was the side message and learning off the back of it, right? And it's 100%, right? I've got our eldest son is absolutely obsessed with football, but is he just going to be able to get a trip to the UK to go watch a Premier League game? No, he needs to work for that. You've got to have things that you want in life, right? And if you don't have that roadmap of knowing they're achievable and attainable, then it's really hard to know what you can get to in future. Well, by buying a team, Auckland FC, what lesson is that teaching him? Well, the lesson there is that there's opportunity in places that you don't necessarily see it, right? So that for us was about figuring out how you can give the player pathways that there aren't currently in New Zealand for kids to get out of New Zealand and be more global. So my one of my big things in life is actually unlocking capabilities and empowering people to realise that there's so much more than what you've got within the closed borders or windows of, say, New Zealand. And I think, we learnt that with Zuru, the sense that you can be a massive global organisation coming from being little humble Kiwi kids, but there's so many more ways that can be adopted in places and areas of your life that can be adopted over. And in sport, outside of rugby, and obviously a few Olympic sports where we definitely punch above our weight in, there hasn't been that opportunity in basketball or football. So it was about saying, how do we help to unlock that potential? And you see it with Paulson already, he's just been signed up by Bournemouth, coming straight out of Phoenix. That's exciting. Those are the journeys that we want to enable in Kiwi kids and give them the passion, right? Life should be all about following your passion and figuring out how we can be empowerers of that is what Auckland FC is about. I mean, it's a massive gap, right? I mean, the fact that we didn't have a team here and we didn't have that competition in New Zealand. You know, across ANZ, there's, I think it's 2.2 million football players across Australia and New Zealand. And we've just never had those pathways opened up before. And there was no, you know, apart from Phoenix in New Zealand, there was no other team here. How do we build a competition in New Zealand when we don't have a derby?
And is it just from a personal perspective, is it just a fun thing to have and to do?
I mean, let's wait and see. We've got a team. We've got a team being pulled together.
Now what?
I think I think it's going to be an absolute roller coaster. You don't necessarily buy a sports team to make money. You've got to have a bigger purpose behind it.
Yeah.
So for us, it's definitely about unlocking that. I mean, it's the biggest sport in the globe. You look at the MLS, for example, in the US and the pathway that they've got on in growth and potential, and there's no reason we can't replicate down here with the APL.
Absolutely. And another thing I saw on your Instagram, you recently went to, I'm a big fan of this guy as well, Steven Bartlett, Diary of a CEO.
Love him.
You went to his live show, you got the photo afterwards. What did he learn from you? Like, I saw the photo, I thought, this is really odd. Like, does he, first of all, does he know who you are and what you've done? Like, it's crazy.
Look,
I feel like
that was just part of the journey, but it was actually really, he's a really lovely guy, and he seems like a very deep and genuine guy. But he gave us, 2 hours of his time to a group of people that were enthralled and deeply engaged. And he's a very engaging individual, and he's got a lot of incredible life lessons. He's a thorough and considered listener, and he really is very deeply respectful of those people that come onto his show, and I think he gets the best out of them as well, and there's a lot to aspire to and learn from him and how he portrays and projects and just goes about his life. So we were very lucky to be in that audience, to be able to get that sort of that accumulated view of knowledge and information that he's garnered off of so many incredible guests that he's had on his podcast. So
it's a great podcast, hey?
It's
fantastic.
A great podcast. It's one of my faves.
And he you know how he does like Instagram tiles with quotes on from time to time. He had one up today. Success is stumbling from failure to failure with no loss of enthusiasm. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I would absolutely agree with that. Success is a series of just very small achievements. And along that journey, you are failing and rebuilding just constantly over and over again. So, yeah, I would wholeheartedly agree with that. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing. I suppose this is what everyone would want to know. Why would you go from Zuru to Zeal? Why wouldn't you just kick back for a bit, get on a couple of like shitty boards or something, and just spend more time with your deeper time with your kids or something? Why do something else?
I wanted to make an impact, and I don't think being on a board you get to truly make a tangible difference. For me, I love being in the thick of it. I love being in the nitty gritty of things. I love learning. I really enjoy building product. That's what gets me excited. That's what really gets me up and out of bed every day. I want to be making something that's useful, right? And for me, with something like Zeal, the power of 5, right? They say if you impact one person, that can influence 5, and that's where you get momentum starting to build, and that's where you can change society, and that's where you can change norms. So for me, it was really important to think about what we could do to unlock potential in others, and I think that's really important from a New Zealand perspective, right? Is what are we doing to help encouraging our youth to contribute, to do more, to get ahead, and to feel confident in what they're actually moving towards. So for me, Zeal was really about initially looking at how we could democratise that path to employment. So it started off really looking at what were some of those barriers to employability. Where were individuals struggling to get themselves work ready, and how can we break down some of those barriers, right? And when we started researching into that space, you've got people struggling to get into work because they don't have a driver's license, for example, or they don't potentially have the skills that they believe are necessary for a role. One of the biggest barriers to becoming employable was actually having a CV. So the first thing we started with in that journey was a CV builder, a free CV builder. So you didn't have to go pay $50 at a website to get a subpar CV, and building that and enabling people to be able to get career ready was really important to me. But then off the back of that, it was how do we allow individuals to succeed and businesses to thrive, and what is the platform that can enable that? So that's where Zeal kind of came from. And again, like I say, it's all about, for me, it was about being able to give back. So it was really important in my journey of Zeal to be doing something in New Zealand with New Zealand talent and building something that had a global applicability, because again, I care deeply about ensuring whatever we do here, that we're learning how to build something for a global stage.
Have you got massive aspirations for it?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
See, you're in a blended family, and we'll get into your relationship later if you want. But there's 5 kids that you've got, and my sister lives in Point Chev. She says she sees you doing the school drop off, every other morning. Aren't you busy enough? Aren't you tired? Why don't you just have a break for a bit?
I actually think it's fantastic that your children see hard work. Right? I don't think
100%.
I don't think a working family is a detriment to the children at all. In fact, quite the opposite, right? Our youngest is now 7, so I mean, we start the day at 6:15. By 7 o'clock, all kids are out the door. We're Pied Piper family. Ali, myself, 5 children walking our way up to the coffee shop for drop off, and they're on the school bus by 7:20. And so you've got the rest of the day to yourself. Why wouldn't you get up and get cracking into something at that point in time and figure out what you can do that nurtures you? And that's what it comes down to, right? Is life is all about finding your passion, following your passion, figuring out how you can give back to others and what you're contributing to society, and then just getting stuck into that and moving towards those goals in a really productive fashion. And for me, raising children is very symbiotic to raising and starting a business. The two things can go in hand.
Dealing with people, managing.
And you talk about it being a series of failures, right? Every single day you learn, you fail with your children, and you figure out how to get back up, because they're not going away. You've got to find solutions, and that's the same thing as running a business and starting up in a business. And being a mum is hard work. It's stressful. It never stops. It's never ending. Starting a business is hard work. Hard work, stressful, never stops, never ending. And so there's a lot of parallels between the two, but ultimately I think they can work really well hand in hand. I'm a very active relaxer. I'm not good at sitting still and sitting on my hands. I like to be contributing somehow in some way. So
we've only been going for 13 minutes. So I get that impression about you. Do you have ADHD or anything? Have you been?
I don't think so. I'm definitely not diagnosed. It's controlled if I do.
yeah. Except, how old are you? What's your age?
ADHD is a superpower, though. I love ADHD. I think if you can take that, harness it, and learn how to direct it in the right way, it's absolutely a superpower.
Because I reckon I've got it undiagnosed, because I'm just at that age where it was never diagnosed. But it's I'm quite happy being an active relaxer. I feel like I get a lot more done. Not as much as you, though.
How far did you run this morning?
Just 10k this morning, just to clear my head. Listen to the final business podcast that you've been on.
Quiet 10k.
Yeah, ran past your building site. I could see that in the distance.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. It's nearly a completed building site, which is always good.
Do you have X-shot bullets all through your house?
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. And I hate it. I mean, I walked down the corridor yesterday, and my little 7-year-old pulls out a blaster and starts firing at me, and I instantly, my whole body just went rigid, and I was like, do not do that to me. There's nothing worse than seeing those things come flying at your head. So I'm slowly confiscating them from the home. Yeah. That doesn't mean when other people's children turn up, I don't deliver them one on a platter, but it's we have a lot of bullets around the house.
Yeah, I can imagine. I've got a photo I want to show you.
Oh no, here we go.
No. I just want to know, what comes to mind when you see this. This is from your early years. Is this Tokoroa or Cambridge?
Oh, I love that. That's in Tokoroa.
Yeah. So how old are you then?
How old do I look, 2?
Yeah, a couple of years old. And you're wearing a dress up. From what I can gather later on, you became like a bit of a tomboy.
Oh, I'm surprised I'm wearing a dress. Mum must have. This is definitely family photo opportunity time, sitting on the trampoline in the middle of the backyard. Trying to get us 4 children to sit still was hard enough, let alone get me into a dress.
But it's a great photo though, isn't it? Because it just looks very, very Kiwi, 1980s.
Yeah.
You're very, just incredibly normal. Was that what your upbringing was like? Were your parents wealthy at all, or no? Just hard working.
Very hard working.
Yeah.
Very hard working. Dad was an engineer, so he was at Kinley Pulp and Paper Mill. So that's the reason we were in Tokoroa. So you could literally see the mill from this backyard. But he was incredibly hardworking. And to give you an idea of that, the very first house they ever owned, Dad literally built it himself by hand. He was the electrician, he was the plumber, he was the builder, he was everything. And he was doing that at the same time as working probably a 50-hour week at the paper mill. And Mum, meanwhile, was trying to raise young children inside this home that Dad was constructing himself. Everything he wanted to achieve in life, he was willing to learn about, to deeply understand, and then to partake in either building it himself or finding the best people to do so. So he never shied away from hard work. He never shied away from learning and curiosity and growth. And so they were incredibly foundational elements to how we are now as individuals as well. But I mean, our upbringing was, I love this photo because if I think about our upbringing, bare feet. Like I just, I just remember bare feet, a lot of Vegemite sandwiches. And my mum always gave us brown bread because she thought that was going to be better for us. And so I was the only kid at school with brown bread, Vegemite sandwiches every day, the same lunch. In this trampoline, I learnt to backflip and forward flip, and I mean, we had a lot of fun in this backyard, cops and robbers, but ultimately, at the end of the day, there was this allowance for independence and freedom, which I think was such a testament of how Mum and Dad raised us. They gave us enough rope to hang ourselves and to learn from our mistakes, but they also set very high standards around how we behaved and how we performed as people. They deeply appreciated kindness, but also having very, very strong manners and a respect for your elders and the people around you, and an acknowledgement of what others were doing to help you get ahead. So we had a really strong set of standards in the family, and I think that was so important. But at the same time, we were wild kids. We definitely scared off a babysitter or two. And I don't just say that. Like, we were the family that you did not want to babysit. And
really? Like, in what way? Were you just naughty? Or?
We love to challenge, right? Everything's a competition. In our family as children, even to this day with our children, right? Everything's a competition. So, I mean, we used to do things like, and just such childish things. But the babysitter would come over and would literally put like a bucket of water on the top of the toilet door, so when the babysitter opened the toilet door, the bucket of water would fall on them. Or we used to have competitions to
That's what we used to do before we had a bunch of balloons.
Yeah, exactly. That's where it all came from. We used to have competitions to see who could, whilst the babysitter was watching TV, sneak down into the kitchen, get a frying pan and make a batch of pancakes without getting busted, so we'd literally do things like that. We would sneak in and we'd get the flour, the eggs, the milk, we'd make pancakes, and then we'd take them out to the babysitter. They were sitting at watching TV. You can just imagine how mortified you were as a babysitter to find out that we'd had an electric pan in the bedroom down the corner, and they hadn't been necessarily looking after us, but we were well known for our antics, and it was all in good spirits, but we were definitely spirited.
So you always sort of had maybe I'm just drawing too much of a connection here, but that sort of disruptor attitude.
Yeah, I think, again, it came down to the we were allowed to be creative and independent and kind of pave our own path. And yes, there's definitely parallels to that around being disruptive.
So you leave school, you go to university because you want to be the only Mowbray to get a degree?
Yeah, well, interestingly enough, I always as a child wanted to be a vet. And so I was going to go to university to be a vet. I later learned that university is more about having fun than it is about learning, but, that's okay. Decided I wanted to become a vet, so went down to Massey University. Got down to Massey, and in the first term sort of holidays, I was working with one of the local vets, and so I just sort of rang up the vet clinic and said, hey, can I come and shadow one of the vets for the next couple of weeks? And I shadowed him for a couple of weeks, and I remember at the end of that time, he turned around to me and said, Anna, I'm not going to let you become a vet. And I was like, what do you mean? Why can't I become a vet? And he's like, I'm not going to let you, the person you are, spend the rest of your life shoving your hands up cows' behinds because it just doesn't make sense. Please do not go back.
Why didn't it make sense?
Well, look, I just thought I wasn't probably going to be very good at doing that, obviously. He didn't quite see that as my career path, which was actually the best advice I could have possibly been given at that point in time. So I very quickly de-enrolled myself from vet and moved across into what seemed to be a good parallel degree down at Massey University, because I was, well set up down there. And again, I wanted to be the only Mowbray to actually finish and get a degree. And food tech was a really interesting degree, 4-year degree, really focused around sort of supply chain management, optimization, as well as engineering, machinery setup, manufacturing facilities within the food and beverage space, and nutrition. So a really interesting degree that I actually quite enjoyed. And then, yes, went on to Frucor.
And then, where did you live in Palmy? What area were you in?
Oh, it was right in the thick of it, and a dingy student flat. I think there were 8 of us in there. It was
nice.
It was good.
What was the bar or bars then? Were you a bar girl?
Yeah, I was. I worked.
Was it Brewer's Apprentice? No, what was?
I worked at the Fitz.
Oh, the Fitz. The Fitz was still even you there. That's a terrible place.
Oh, it was terribly good in the sense that it kept me away from drinking, behind the bar, feeding everyone else, lining my pocket with a bit of cash, so I didn't have to get out of there with a student loan. For me, it was always really important that I didn't have to be tied from a financial perspective to a loan or some sort of external factor. So
you must have seen some things there. I went there once with a couple of mates who play rugby for Kia Tower, and they did a thing called a pelican, where one of them put fingers in his own throat and vomited into his mate's mouth. And he didn't get kicked out. You didn't get kicked out of the Fitz for doing that.
It probably would have been celebrated.
Okay, so you work at Frucor, and then your 2 brothers, Matt and Nick?
Matt, so I went on to, so Frucor was an interesting one actually. They came down to university and down to Massey, and they were looking for interns to come into Frucor and into their own research and development team. And they put up posters around the campus for a 4th-year student to come and do their internship with them. I was only my 3rd year at that point in time, or just partially through my 3rd year. I thought, this is perfect, I'll go and apply for this job anyway, even though I wasn't a 4th year. Went in, hit it off with the R&D manager at that point in time, and she turned around and employed me for this graduate program. And so I went down to Frucor and started working there throughout the term holiday, and as I came close to the end of my time there, she handed me a full-time contract and said, we want to employ you full-time once you've finished your 4th year. And I turned around to her and I sort of said, I'm actually only in my 3rd year. And she was like, excuse me? That was not what this was all about. You're supposed to be in your final year so we could bring you on board into a graduate program. And they actually ended up helping sponsor my last year of my degree so that I would actually lock in and come back and work for them full time once I'd finished. So finished up at university, and at this point, like my older brother Matt, who actually founded Zuru, so he was... he's an incredible engineer, incredible product guy, just really brilliant around the future and future-proofing your business and building product into that space. But he'd been sort of peppering me and hounding me a bit earlier, before I'd actually finished and graduated university, to come over and start with Zuru. And I sort of said to him, look, I've got to go to Frucor. I've got this scholarship that they've given me to go into Frucor. So I went there for a couple of weeks, and he's like, come on Anna, get over here, you got to come and join us over here. It's like, the time is now, we need you, we're desperate for you, just get on a plane to China. And I turned around to my boyfriend at the time and I was like, should we go to China? He's like, yeah, go to China, it sounds like a plan. And so I'd gone into Frucor, which is an incredible company, great business, had amazing mentors around me, but I was probably a bit of a pest, right? I would just wander around, peer over everyone's shoulders, get involved in whatever project was going on. I probably wasn't adding a huge amount of value. And I look back on it and reflect back on it, and I just probably needed a bit more. And so as soon as I realised that was what the corporate world looked like for me, I literally said to Matt the next time he called, okay, get me a ticket. And so I was on a plane probably 5 days later.
So were Frugal mad at you? So they sponsor you last year at uni?
I had such a great relationship with the team in there. I actually remember sitting down in Sandra's office at that time and telling her, and she just looked at me and she goes, you would. Yeah, you would. And then just sort of smiled, and I was like, I'm so sorry. And then, then the worst part as well is that at that point in time, I was playing football, and we had a work football team, and we were supposed to be going over to Brazil, I think it was, to play in a tournament over there with our work team. And so Sandra's boss, Jackie, who I still now work with and keep in touch with, turned around with me and she's like, you can't leave before the football tournament. You've got to come to at least that. I was like, I think I'm just going to, if I do that, I'm really getting myself into a deep hole. So we're just going to segue at this point in time. So yeah, I jumped on a plane, headed over to China, into one of the most extreme situations probably in my life.
Yeah. So the story goes that the three of you, Matt, Nick, and yourself, you each had like an inheritance of $10,000 each from somewhere. And
from our grandmother. So that was from my grandmother passed away. So that actually happened probably a couple of months after I had moved over there. That she passed away.
So when you moved, you moved over to China at the age of?
Oh, was I 21?
21.
Yeah.
So what is Zuru at that point?
Oh, just a very small, rundown manufacturing square with a few workers in it, starting of a bit of an R&D tool shop, a few production lines, manufacturing at that point in time the hot air balloon, and starting to a foray into what was our first product that probably gave us a bit of global reach, which was a product line called Night Sports, and that was a range of light up soccer ball, football, basketball, and frisbee.
Was that these? No.
Yes. Yeah, that's them.
Yeah. So how old are you then?
Oh, 21, I'd say.
Yeah. Jeez, you all look so young, eh?
No, this was our next factory, so I must be 23 or.
Well, that's way down the track. So paint a picture of those early years. It sounds pretty bleak, but was it? Yeah, how did it compare to? I mean, you had a shitty flat in Palmerston. It might sound bleak,
but it was incredible, right? I mean, when I look back on what we, the environment was that we lived in, you wouldn't necessarily wish it upon your children, but at the time, it was exciting, right? Like, we were just these young Kiwi kids with big goals, big ambitions, big desires. We hadn't grown up in a world where we were entitled or we thought we deserved a certain level or quality of life, and we were very open and receptive of anyone and all. I'd grown up in an environment where mum and dad had taught us to be, I think, just good citizens and good people. So moving over to China, we were living in some pretty rough circumstances. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, paint a picture. So you were living in an office, and there was a shower above the toilet or something? No, what?
It was, so Matt and I lived up in China, so I was in China for 16 years, living in China full time, and by that I mean, in the later years I'd come home once a year for maybe a 10-day holiday, but in those early years I wouldn't have come home probably for the first 3 years of going over there. And we're living in an environment that is, it's an hour and a half outside of Guangzhou, the biggest, the biggest city near us was Guangzhou, and we were living in a small place called Huadu, which had about 1 million people by population, and I can safely say I would have been one of the only female white faces in Huadu. So we didn't have friends. We did not have people that you could anchor into or call or use as a mentorship. It was literally Matt and myself. Our cousin Simon was over there as well. And then just an incredible crew of and team of Chinese employees over there who were honestly phenomenal. Some of our team over there are still, with Zuru today and running the business at very high levels and senior positions in the organisation. But I mean, it's hot. it's sticky, it's dirty, it is fast paced, there's language barriers, there's cultural nuances that you can't even start to understand and comprehend. There's no road rules, there's a society that you just you learn to appreciate so deeply, because it's grounded in this resourcefulness and this desire to get ahead that you can't even appreciate or articulate unless you've lived in it and been part of it. And the pace of innovation and change and speed of discovery is something that's unparalleled. So, I mean, I would say we learnt business the Chinese way, and that was the greatest asset we could have ever received. I remember that first day driving from the airport to the factory where Matt at that point in time was living, and Nick was living there a little bit as well at that point in time, but he was starting to commute a lot more down to Hong Kong, Hong Kong being sort of the melding pot of the toy industry from a buying perspective and a sales side of things. So he was really anchoring that front end of the business down in Hong Kong, and I remember arriving at the factory and just first off being in awe at the sort of the productivity, the get up and go, the buzz, the sort of the drive of everyone there. But Matt and I have bedrooms that are off the side of our centre office, where we've got 10 desks in there. Our showers are at one end of that. There's a toilet down the bottom of the staircase, which is utilised by all the factory team. And at the start, we didn't have a working shower block up near our bedroom, so we literally had a shower over top of the toilet for the factory floor. And when I say I couldn't stand up in this, I could not stand up in it. It was full of mosquitoes. So your shower was literally 30 seconds, and it's all a gas heating system, which is triggering on and off. You never know if it's going to work. But it was literally 30-second shower, in and out, get up there, pad up to our room in a towel, get changed in the bedroom, walk straight out into the factory floor. Like it was definitely an interesting time, and we had a chef there that was cooking, because you generally cook for all of your factory team. So she was cooking for all the factory team and ourselves. But we had a budget of about 2.5 RMB per meal. So
what's that?
That would be like literally 40 cents.
Oh my God, it's like you're in prison.
Yeah.
Well,
so I just have these memories of, and we always laugh about it, Matt and I, of the chef, and she'd yell out "Savannah," which meant it was lunchtime, and Matt and I used to just hear that and be like, oh gosh, back into that. And there was this one dish that was, because I was always very dubious about any of the meat. I was like, you're not buying meat for that price. Like, what is this?
Mystery meat.
I'll just stay clear of the meat. But there was a dish that I felt was really safe, and it was pumpkin cooked in oil until it was literally mush with salted peanuts thrown over the top. So it was like oily, pumpkiny, peanutty mash, and that was the one dish that I considered and deemed very safe. So I would eat that most days of the week, and then we would supplement that with McDonald's. And McDonald's at that time was very progressive, because McDonald's did delivery. This was far before Uber Eats. So Matt and I would treat ourselves with McDonald's as well while we were living there. So it was interesting. We didn't have transportation. We didn't have a car at that point in time. We were taking public buses, where you're standing up in a public bus, and you'd commute with that into town, and no ability to really communicate well. And then you've also got to remember that someone like myself walking down the streets,
you stand out.
You stand out, and so everyone's touching you and feeling you and stroking your hair and wanting to talk to you, and it was a really different environment, but it was incredibly humbling, and it was incredibly defining of the people that we were then and that we've become now. So I mean, I love China. I love it. I love the people of China. I love the loyalty. I love the hustle. I love the grind. I love the dedication, the hard work, and everything it gave to us was so powerful. Yeah,
because the Anna that's sitting in front of me today, it seems like very, very posh. It's hard to imagine her living on pumpkin.
I'm far from posh. Don't you worry.
No. But yeah, I suppose from where you are now, you can look back fondly on that. But at the time, there must have been days where you thought, what the fuck are we doing?
Do you know what, though? I don't think there were. I don't remember that. I don't ever remember second guessing it. I don't even remember thinking, why on earth am I in China and why am I here? And I think that's a really important nuance of surviving difficult situations or times or moments, right? You have to look at the positive in it. If you don't, you will not survive it. And I think it's really similar to business as well. If you're in a tough or a stressful moment within your business or life, and you get too deeply reminiscent about that or go too deeply down the rabbit hole of that moment, then it's really hard to keep on powering through and pushing through and getting out of that scenario. So for me, living in China was just always exciting and exhilarating and new and there was always something to learn, and there was someone to grow from, and to be, and a life that you could change. So I mean, there was some beautiful nuances to it, right? Like the number of Chinese weddings we got to experience, or babies that were born into the family, like families and relationships we got to understand, Chinese holidays we got to celebrate, like all of those cultural elements were really, really incredible, and we got to learn and see all of that firsthand. Because we were so deeply and intricately linked into the country and tied to the country. And I think, you know, we went into that move to China with an open mindset, and in return for that, and a deep respect for people, and in return for that, we got to work with some of the best and the brightest and the greatest people within China, and we're able to develop a business that is truly phenomenal and quite unparalleled in its industry and on a global scale.
It is. It's incredible, and it's not an industry that you'd ever think there's a gap in the market. I mean, you think of, I don't know, Mattel or Hasbro, or I don't know who your competitors are, and it's like there was no sort of obvious gap there, and these three siblings from New Zealand somehow did it. It's just remarkable. What was your goal in the early days? Like, was it to be one of the world's biggest toy makers?
Look, I think your goals don't start that big, right? And I think
too hard, eh?
Yeah, the goal out of the gate was, how do we make money? How do we become profitable?
How do we eat something other than pumpkin?
How do we actually sell these toys and make sure that they get sold off the shelf, right? Like, so the first goals initially are so much smaller. And then you get to the point where you're like, hey, we've actually got something that works here. Wow, we got into these accounts in this country. What's the next country that we're going to open up? And so it's all about that staged approach, right? Yes, you've got this bigger long-term goal of being wildly successful in the industry that you're going into, but it has to start smaller. And I said it at the start, right? It's all about those those consistent movements, all in that streamlined and common direction that leads to success. And I always say it's about commitment and consistency. You know, without commitment, you don't start. Without consistency, you don't conquer. So how do you show up every single day with that consistent approach to achieving for a bigger goal? So yeah, we got to the point where it was like, phenomenal. How do we now, you know, we've done this exceptional job in international, how do we now win in the US? So once we've won the US, great. How do we now become one of the 50 biggest toy companies, then the 10th, and then in the top 5? And so it constantly evolves. And then
so the goalposts just keep on sort of changing.
They keep on changing, and I think that's really important, because you've got to be able to celebrate those milestones when you get to them as well. And so if you're always just reaching for that huge audacious one, you don't really have anything to celebrate along the way. And it's not that, look, I'm not a big believer in necessarily celebrating your wins to the nth degree. I think that you should talk about good news once, enjoy it, move on. But when things are going bad or poorly, you should talk about it all the time and figure out how you're going to change it. Look, business is interesting, right? Because you ultimately have to be spending your time in the places you least want to in a lot of cases, because that's where the hard work needs to be done, and that's where you've got to make change happen. So when you're a founder or a business owner, you've got to be constantly evolving and figuring out where you add support and where you help and where you accelerate to enable you to keep on growing and keep moving forward. But yeah, it's all about momentum. And once you get it, you've just got to maintain it, hold on to it, and keep trying to supercharge it.
Absolutely. Shit, there's so many good takeaways in this. I've got another photo for you. Was this
another photo?
Was this
like a game?
Was this the tipping point for Zuru?
That was one tipping point. I think there's lots of tipping points. Robo Fish.
There's your
Is that my job?
they still sell them now. They're like $12 at Farmers and Whitcoulls. And like, how many of them would you guys have sold?
And when we first launched this, we sold 30 million in the first, I think it was 18 months. 30 million. This was a great story, actually. Chinese inventor Xiaoping Lu, and he worked for a competitor, a company called IFI. And at IFI, he had actually taken them the concept of this Robo Fish and presented it to them as something he thought should be added to the range. And the owner at that point in time of IFI said no, it wasn't something he wanted, wasn't going to go down that path. And we happened to be privy to seeing it in action. And it's a phenomenal bit of engineering, right? You've got this tiny little fish that's, 4 centimetres long. It's got full electronics inside of it so that it moves and it swims like a real fish. It's weighted so that it can dive and doesn't get stuck at the surface of the water. It has to dive down 5 metres across every 3 dives, and it's very highly intricate in how it works. It's got carbon activated sensors so that as soon as it touches water it bursts into life. It's a phenomenal masterpiece of engineering. And,
you seem so proud, it's like you're talking about one of your kids.
Yeah. Photos are good, aren't they? Just, it helps me visualise. It really was a phenomenal piece of engineering, and likewise the manufacturing of it that came thereafter, which was equally as phenomenal. But Xiaoping, he took the idea to his current boss, who said that he didn't want to go ahead with it. So Xiaoping had him sign off on a document that said that he had the rights to be able to go and license it elsewhere. He came to us, we picked up the license, we took it to market, and then IFI sued us for stealing their IP. We ended up, at that point in time, we were quite young and naive, and to be honest, a little bit scared. We sort of had this big player in the industry that was coming at us for stealing intellectual property from his organisation. We were 100% in the right. Xiaoping had left the organisation, he'd got a signed document saying that he had the ability to take the product elsewhere. He had IP. He was in a really good headspace and in a good position on it, but we were quite nervous, so we ended up settling with IFI in that situation. If I had my time again, I would not have settled with them. I would have absolutely taken it the whole way.
Like for how much?
I can't even remember how much we settled for, to tell you the honest truth.
Like millions or something?
Oh, no, not at all. No.
Right.
Like literally not a lot at all. But what we did do is we shared the distribution of the IP. This was a phenomenal product. We launched it. It was a massive tipping point for us as an organisation. Like I say, we sold about 30 million of them in the first 18 months. It took us global. It really built credibility. It taught us how to scale. It definitely helped open doors from a distribution perspective, not only with retailers but also with countries as well. So it was a phenomenal product.
You seem so proud when you talk about it so passionately.
Well, it's nice to reminisce, isn't it? You show me a photo and it takes me back.
Yeah, so I get the feeling you're such a forward-thinking person. You don't spend a lot of time staring in the rear view.
I don't at all. So all of these photos, I've really enjoyed this journey you've taken me on, because I never reminisce.
And then so a bunch of balloons came after that.
There's some of this. You've made me think as well about this. When we had the factory went bankrupt on us with this product as well, right when we had hundreds of thousands of pieces to ship to Walmart and Target, and this was a factory, it was a French-run facility, and it went bankrupt, and we had to literally reset up a new facility in the course of a couple of weeks, turn around all of our production, get the entire manufacturing lines set up, all the quality testing, all of the machinery, and have our product shipped out to Walmart and Target in a very, very small amount of time. And to your point around it being a tipping point, at that point, we had to succeed. Our credibility was on the line because this was our big break into some of the biggest retailers globally. So that was definitely a stressful time. But off the back of that, we learned a lot around the capabilities and the adaptability that there was in China to be able to make change happen fast and for us to be able to drive it as well. I mean, this is where us being in China, having our teams located there and being so close to the manufacturing and the supply chain was absolutely a huge asset to Zuru and our ongoing success. So sorry, then you were talking about Bunch of Balloons.
Oh, Bunch of Balloons, yeah. So something which didn't even occur to me. So that was invented by some guy called Josh Malone, an American guy.
Yep.
And then So is this how it works? Someone has an idea, they pitch it to you, and then you either buy the idea or you don't buy the idea.
Yeah, a lot of the time it depends really on the product. So Robo Fish was an inventor item. Bunch of Balloons was something like an X-Shot. No inventor was involved in that. That was us end-to-end. Or something like a Rainbow Corns. Again, that was one that we've developed end-to-end as well, or a mini brand. So it really just depends on the product. But absolutely, when you see something great, and you know that you can add value for the inventor, it's a very symbiotic relationship.
So this guy Josh Malone, what would he make out of that?
Oh, I don't even know the numbers off the top of my head.
But very wealthy man.
I mean, he does well out of it, and so he should, and he's been an incredible partner in that journey. I mean, we went through a lot with Bunch of Balloons. That was one of these products where, you know, as soon as we licensed it, we knew that there was going to be a flurry of activity around figuring out how to knock that off and how to take it to market faster and or cheaper than what we were able to do.
Oh, like copycats.
Yeah,
right,
absolutely.
Right.
So many copycats. So for us, it was really about figuring out how we could beat the copycats at their own game. And again, being in China enabled that in us, but also I talked to Matt earlier on his engineering capabilities. For him, he assembled a team to really automate and set up a fully automated facility there for us to be able to manufacture Bunch of Balloons at scale. And that ability to do it for the cheapest price possible out of China enabled us to be able to protect the IP behind that brand. But we went on to win, you know, a $45 million lawsuit with that product. And that was 4 years that I spent defending the IP behind Bunch of Balloons with Josh Malone. He was incredible in that journey as well. But again, if he'd been taking that product to market himself, he would have never been able to defend the IP. The company that...
He'd just be steamrolled, right?
He'd be absolutely steamrolled. And the company that ultimately were the biggest culprits in knocking off Bunch of Balloons, a company called Tally Brands. They actually started as seen on TV. So as seen on TV, the late night ads, they have a whole aisle in Target and Walmart. They owned those aisles. So what they have that others don't is an instant distribution point and multiple points at retail in some of the biggest footprint retailers in the globe. So what Tally Brands is able to do is they're able to take great ideas, they quickly turn them around in China without really a care on the quality side of things because they're all about getting volume. And then they place them on the shelves at a Walmart and a Target. And then they slowly, incrementally, if a product sells well, work on the quality, work on the price point. So they came at Bunch of Balloons in exactly that same manner. They didn't care about quality control or ensuring that the product was of good value. They threw up, you know, hundreds of thousands of units into Target and Walmart stores, and then they tried to steamroll us with the fact that they had the retail placement.
Who knew the toy game was so dirty and nasty?
The toy game is dirty, like it's very, very dirty.
But then is that kind of what you guys, is it X-Shot kind of like that to Nerf?
It is and it isn't, because there's no IP, there's no invention features about that, right? Kids have been picking up sticks as if they're a blaster since, you know, hundreds of years ago.
Yeah.
So it's very different in the sense that there's no intellectual property. So that's the delineator. Something like Bunch of Balloons is wholly inventive, and you know the IP has stood up. That like I alluded to before, that went through 3 separate litigations where Tally Brands slightly incrementally changed the product to try and get around our IP. We were able to have our IP stand up in 3 different litigations, 3 courtrooms over an extended period of time because we have an inventive feature. So that's what's critical. It was wholly distinctive, wholly unique, wholly inventive, and we had the documentation to be able to prove that. So that's where it's a very different scenario. So Tally Brands, the number of companies they've steamrolled, they have had hundreds of litigations, and I'm talking hundreds and hundreds of litigations. The owner of Tally Brands had never turned up in a courtroom and be taken all the way through trial. We were the first people to ever take him all the way through trial. And I remember so clearly when he came to our Hong Kong office to try and settle with me and get the rights to Bunch of Balloons. And I sat at the table and I told him on no uncertain terms we were going to be licensing the product to him, that he was scum, and that we would not be backing down. And he turned around to me and he said, "Little girl, this is the stupidest decision you'll ever make." And I just looked at him and I was like, We'll see. And it just put the fire in my belly.
How old were you at the time, little girl?
I would have been 27, I'd say. Something around there. Maybe a little bit older.
Jeez.
But yeah, he and like I say, it was the first time I'd ever been in a courtroom, and I've never seen anyone look more uncomfortable. And you know, we won the trial. I spent so much time on that. We won the trial. He wasn't able to appeal it. We ran it 3 times in a row. He went through every means possible to try and turn over our patents and IP, and then he got to the point where he said to us that he wasn't going to be paying the final sum. And so I remember calling him up one day and I said, I know your wife, I know your children, I know you, I've had a private investigator following you, I know where your cash is, I know where your money's sitting, I know where your reserves are, I suggest you pay us, otherwise we'll be opening up a can of worms. And just hung up the phone on him and we got paid 2 days later. So
Oh my God.
it was really interesting working in that sort of environment. But yeah, he's got a whole book written about him, Knockoff King, because that was his business model, and he just crushed and suppressed and steamrolled inventors on a constant incremental basis, because IP is so hard to hold up.
That phone call that you made sounds really mean, but I suppose the only way to fight a bully is to you have to front up to them, don't you?
You have to, and you've also got to be bold about what you do, and that's a big part of life, right? Life is a series of decisions. You've got to make the right decisions at the right time and be bold about what you stand for and what you're trying to achieve. Yeah.
So was it around this time that you met your partner Blake and you had 3 children?
Oh gosh. Yep, 3 children.
Where's Blake from? Was he
Hawaiian?
Hawaiian.
Yeah. So that's the reason they all have Hawaiian names. Yeah.
Oh, do they? What are their names?
Kalani, Miley, and Kaleo.
Miley. Oh, Miley. Yeah. Hannah Montana energy.
Oh, no, that was about.
All right.
It's Maile.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Spelling.
so you worked sort of all the way through, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the beauty of being able to be, a founder of a business and your own boss, and being able to have children. So yeah, I worked all the way through. I think I went down to Hong Kong the day before my due date. And you're not supposed to be crossing borders until your last 2 weeks. So I had the doctor up in China sign a letter that said my due date was one date, and the doctor down in Hong Kong had a date that was wholly different. So I turned up there a day before the Hong Kong doctor's due date and 2 weeks before the Chinese doctor's due date, to cross the border at the right point in time. And I went down and shared an apartment with Nick down there while we waited for my eldest to come. But I mean, I was so lucky. I mean, I had him, and 2 days later I was back on conference calls. And as soon as he got his passport, I think it took me around 10 days. As soon as he got his passport, we were back up across the border and into the offife. So, it was.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Yeah, but I just, there was nothing else that was life, right? Life was, building Zuru and building it to be the best it could possibly be, and children got to come into that environment and just slot right in and fit in and become part of it. So, I mean, Kalani, literally, I had my desk in the open plan office, and at one end of it I had a changing mat, and next to the changing mat was a crib, and he came with me each day, and I'd had him on an incredible routine, right? Everything was very structured. A, because, you've got to get sleep at night time, and B, because I had to work during the day. So he was on a really structured set of timing. I had an amazing Filipino nanny who would come in. She'd meet me at the office in the morning, and she'd help, work through the day's routine. But for me, it was really important that he was there with me. So I wanted him right beside me at the desk. It was first time mum, you just want your baby there with you. And I was very privileged that I got to have that, right? And I mean, I've got photos of him learning to crawl in this dirty factory floor, and that was how his life started. He literally learned to crawl in the middle of a factory in the middle of nowhere, China.
And then, so what made you decide to tap out of Zuru?
Oh, you're jumping around.
Oh.
Jeepers. Kids, Zuru, back.
Oh, sorry. We'll get back to the kids and family stuff, but I feel like this will sort of finish off the Zuru.
The Zuru story. Look, one thing about my life is that I always want to be doing more and learning more and achieving more, and that's really important for me. Is that there's a lot of personal growth, and so to build something like we did together at Zuru is quite incredible, right? Working with your brothers and in an environment that we did, and to build something so phenomenal is rare and exceptional and exciting and exhilarating. But one thing for me was that I also wanted to do something more for myself. And so I set a goal for myself when I was 35 that said, don't let Zuru be the greatest mountain you ever climb, do something else before you're 40.
Yeah, I've heard that.
And so
So Zuru, are you having Zuru as your K2 and Zeal as your Everest?
well,
Or will there be another mountain? There's more mountains
you just
up.
never know how many
God.
mountains there's going to be, right? Like, let's not cap this. Didn't we talk about goals ever changing?
Yeah.
Look, it's just about enjoying what you're doing in that moment and getting solely fulfilled through it. You know, and what we've done with Zuru is incredible, and that's part of the journey that will never be replaced, never be replicated, never be seen probably for a very long time. For 3 siblings to come out of New Zealand and do something like that.
It's unheard of.
So incredible, right?
The success is unparalleled.
Yeah, and so now I get to use that as a foundation to keep going. And so I'm very privileged.
So is it a big call to leave, or are your brothers okay with it? Like how?
Oh, we're good.
Yeah.
I mean,
how does that
that's the
conversation
great
start?
thing.
They fully understand and accept your decision, and
Yeah, they're supportive. I mean, it's never easy, those conversations. Like, they're tough, and we went through so much together, and we lived in the trenches together. But ultimately, those blood relationships are always going to be there, and we are so close. You know, you've got to remember how long we lived and spent and breathed and worked together. You know, like Matt and I were so closely entwined in everything that we did on a daily basis for 15 years in the middle of China, right? Like, you form a bond that is, you can't even imagine it, right? Because all we had really was each other. And so there's a deep level of respect and trust there, and we wholeheartedly support each other in everything that we're doing, which is really nice. So, I mean, Nick and Jamie were just over on the weekend. Matt, I was just talking to him in CT yesterday. Like, you're always going to have that really close relationship, and I think that's the special thing about family.
Yeah, and when they talk to you now about stuff that's going on at Zuru, like, is there any sort of FOMO, or is it just sort of like, thank God?
I love it. I just want to see that business
Yeah,
keep going
yeah.
from strength to strength. It's my baby still, right? And you never have to walk away from that. And that's the beautiful thing, right? Like, celebrate the success in others. Celebrate the success in anything that you've been able to contribute to, because that's the beauty in life. Like, I just want to see that business continue to grow, continue to prosper, and it will. That's the great thing, is because it's been built on such an incredible foundation.
Yeah, so they buy you out or pay you out, however you want to phrase it. And
This was a personal podcast, wasn't it? Not about business.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Is this business? Oh, no. But I feel like this is important, because I wonder how you feel about. I mean, there's
personal.
there's so much written about that. I wonder if it makes you feel uncomfortable, or.
Oh, I just don't need to discuss it.
Yeah. But are you New Zealand's richest woman?
Don't know. I don't care about that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
I don't like that sort of thing.
But what about when you read like in the paper about your house, and like helicopter pads and things like that? Like, does that feel invasive or personal, or you don't mind? You don't care?
All of that's very invasive. I just think that New Zealand media's got a long way to go to be more constructive, right? And I think there's so much we can celebrate. Why not enable more, empower more, celebrate more, and engage in ways that are truly pushing society forward? And I think that's the great thing about podcasts, about micro-credentials, about the freedom of information that we have now. There's so many ways that you can learn and you can be empowered. Sensationalization and clicks are always going to be there. They're always going to be part of what a lot of media outlets believe is the right approach. But ultimately, for me, I would love to see a world and a media outlet, or an option where we truly help the nation get ahead. And the only way we really all get ahead in a comprehensive, in a community-based fashion, is by learning to celebrate one another.
Yeah.
Learning to celebrate successes, and starting to actually think a bit more deeply around how we educate, how we empower, how we upskill one another, so that as a nation we can keep moving ahead. And our metrics in the OECD are abysmal at the moment, and there's a reason for that. And if we don't all come together as a nation to figure out what we're doing to get ahead, we're going to continue to keep going backwards. So do I think that any of that media side of things adds value? No.
Do you think
I think there's an opportunity to add value? Yes.
Yeah. Do you think part of it is stemmed in like tall poppy? There does seem to be like a negativity in this country, towards people that have done well for themselves.
Yeah. I look, at the end of the day, the only way to change that is to change the tone of voice. And there's so much we have to be grateful for. There's so much we have that can be celebrated. There's so many great people doing amazing things. Entrepreneurialism will continue to power up our country and move us forward in education, right? Because that's where the jobs are made. That's where intellect is created. That's where we're bringing new IP that adds value from a GDP perspective. Like, that's where we continue to build an incredible society, and that's how we continue to get ahead as a nation. That, and then obviously as well, making sure that we're actually empowering people to come through and want to take those paths is really, really important. And so how do we change that narrative? That's not my job. That's someone else's.
Do you want to get into politics at some point?
Maybe that can be something you can pick up. Absolutely not.
Really? That's not going to be one of your mountains?
Could you imagine?
I reckon you get too frustrated. You'd get too frustrated at the lack of...
I don't think I was cut from that cloth.
I don't know. I don't know. I think you'd be, whatever you do, whatever you put your mind to doing, you think you're going to be very good at it. But I think you'd find it just too frustrating.
We'll leave that to Chris.
Okay. So, Are you a Luxon fan? Do you not talk about politics at all?
I don't talk about politics, but I appreciate Chris. He's a great person. He's a great man, and I like that he's coming in and trying to run the country as a business and holding accountability and setting KPIs and pushing people towards those. So, it's a great man.
Hey, so you've got a wedding coming up. We're recording this at the beginning of July. You're getting married in Fiji next month?
Yep.
Yeah, to Ali Williams, former All Black. So, be honest with me. When you are you a rugby fan? Like, were you?
Not overly. I mean, I grew up in a family with three brothers.
Yeah, Waikato family as well.
I grew up in a Waikato family, three brothers. So there was a lot of rugby on the TV. My brothers all played. So you're part of it. But no, I've never grown up specifically as a rugby fan.
So, but you weren't like an Ali Williams fan, like, oh my God, it's
No,
Ali.
I
how
had
did you guys...
no idea who he was when I first met him.
Bollocks, God, he stands out like...
But you've got to remember, I hadn't lived in New Zealand.
Oh, yeah,
I
true.
lived in New Zealand. I didn't open the Herald to save myself, right? Like, we were completely removed from anything that was happening in New Zealand. And I was barely ever coming back here. So would I have even watched an All Blacks game in my time over there? Probably every now and then, but it was over a pint of beer at a pub and enjoying a burger rather than some pumpkin mashed. So it was definitely I had no idea who he was when I first met him, so that was
where did you meet?
We met in Bali at a mutual friend's wedding.
Oh, amazing!
Yeah. So
and first impression?
First impression, he threw me in a pool.
Did he? What's the context?
It did not go down that well.
Do you think you're a Robo Fish?
Needless to say, I swam like one too. I just, burst to life when I hit the water. So needless to say, I wasn't a huge Ali fan when I first met him. And then he sort of had this look of shock of like, what have I just done? And then he tried to redeem himself, and I grew up with three brothers, so and I'd lived in China for 15 years, so I was quite durable.
And then, how have you found the blending family thing? So you've got three kids from previous marriage. He's got two kids from previous marriage. That's a lot. It's
amazing.
Yeah.
We both deeply love children. He is a phenomenal father. He's a great friend. He's a great father. He's an incredible partner. Someone who is truly so supportive of whatever I do and whatever the children do. He has entirely embraced my three as his own, and he always says he's so lucky to have got boys, and likewise his daughters are fairy angels to my daughter, and just the relationships that the children have been able to build has been really special. We've been building a home at the moment on our place in Westmere, and whilst we've been building that, we've been living with the 7 of us and 2 dogs who are the equivalent size to small adults in a 3-bedroom home. So it's been tight-knit, really close quarters, incredibly loud environment, but that has been the making of our family. It has been the most bonding time imaginable. You know, you couldn't whisper in the house without someone hearing you. So all of the children have had to learn to be very accepting, very patient, very willing to understand one another, because they've been living in such close quarters. And that's been incredible. You know, Kalani, our eldest, he's, you know, teaching the rest of them, you know, dedication and commitment to a cause, and he's so driven to what he does. You know, Jessica, the next one down, I said before, she's been literally the fairy angel to Miley, who's a little bit more conservative, more reserved, and so she's getting bored out of her shell in the most beautiful way. The youngest 2 are thick as thieves. You know, they've been together since literally they were 1, or just shy of even 1. They've been together, and so they don't know anything different. And you know, there is no commentary around stepbrother and sister. They are siblings. They are brothers and sisters. Ellie is dad. I'm mum. Mama Ray. It doesn't.
Mama Ray.
Yeah, it's so
right.
It's so close. Like, the family is. There's not really a divide, and it is beautiful, and we are very, very lucky, and they all add so much to each other, and those shared learnings and lessons are really quite special that they're able to grow.
Yeah, you must be immensely proud of that, because if there's no divide, I mean, yeah, that comes down a lot to you and Ali, I think. And
I think it's, you know, we don't have any different rules across the kids, you know, and there's this really strong principles base that we're both aligned on as well. You know, I think we grew up in similar environments with parents that had really high standards, were really strict, and cared deeply about you know, intrinsic human values. And so one of the most special things about our relationship is not only that we've both performed it at such a high level, we know what it takes to work at that level, so we both empower each other to do so, but we've got a shared aligned vision on how we want to raise the children, and that makes a difference. It makes it really symbiotic. It's an easy relationship. We both fully align on how we want to parent, the standards we want to set, the creativity we want them to be nurtured into, the desire to make them children that appreciate what they've got and want to work hard for a future for themselves in a path or vocation that they choose, rather than something that has been dictated to them. So we're all about freedom and independence, and ensuring that they don't just get given anything, right? They've got to work for it.
Yeah, but how do you do that? How do you avoid spoiling them?
I think it's really it's hard, but it's so simple. You know, it's hard.
But you don't want it to impede on your life. This is a far smaller example, but I'm thinking a few years ago, JJ and I, there was a family adoption, and we took our nephew to LA, and we were flying business class, so it was like, well, we'll get him business class as well. And it's kind of that's a very small level, but it's like you're trying to give them lessons along the way. We're like, now these seats are very expensive, but if you work hard and you try your best, you can have seats like this when you're older. And
it's really hard.
But you don't want to put yourself in economy class with the kids, do you?
No, but I put them in economy.
Do you?
Yeah, 100%. Why wouldn't you?
Damn it, I should have done that.
But honestly, we do, 100% we do, because they're old enough now to be accountable and responsible and sit in economy, and they need to know that that's not something you just get given. You don't walk onto a plane and naturally turn left. That's not where it starts. I did not do that until I was well into my 30s, and even then I cringed at it every single time I did that out of the gate, right? That was hard, and that took a lot of hard work to get there. And so you're right, it is so difficult, and we spend a lot of time talking about that, and it's the small things, it's the little elements, it's being consistent about how we do them, it's making sure that they have to work for everything that they get. You know, I remember having a conversation when Kaleo decided he wanted to play tennis, and I was like, I'm not just giving you a tennis racket. And he's like, but I need a tennis racket. I was like, you can go to school. When you have tennis at lunchtime, I'm sure the teachers will have a racket that you're able to use. And so he was just borrowing a racket. And then one of the other parents were like, you know, this poor kid, he's got to ask for a racket every time I gave him a racket. And I was furious about it, because I was of the opinion, you know, that doesn't just happen. when he's decided that he's really committed to the sport and he really loves the sport, he can work for 5 weekends in a row around the home to make some money to be able to buy his own tennis racket, right? Because you've got to build that desire and that will in children. And if you don't have a will and a desire, how will you ever be innovative? How will you ever be creative? How will you ever overcome barriers down the track? Like, you've got to have adversity in your life. And so there's so many things that are completely frictionless around the environment that we live in and how we're raising our children. So many things. So how do we build that friction? How do we build that adversity? How do we ensure that the children don't just get given it? And so that's the fundamental principle.
From your perspective, that's actually the hard path to take. Because you and I'm guessing our upbringings were probably fairly similar, and I'd ask for things, and my parents would just say, we can't afford it.
Absolutely.
And that was the end of the story.
Yeah.
But your kids would be like, Mum's lying.
Yeah, well, exactly. So I can't even use that line. I just have to, I have to say to them, can you afford it, or why do you deserve it, and or make me a case study for it. So
they must think you're the meanest person in the world sometimes.
I mean, this is a terrible parenting moment, but kind of a funny one at the same time, and this was just last week. But I mean, this just sort of tells you a little bit about our environment. So obviously the long weekend, the girls school, they have this habit of putting a parent-teacher day before a long weekend. So the girls got the Thursday off and the Friday off and the Saturday, Sunday, right? So they had a 4-day weekend rather than a 3-day weekend. Now, the boys' school never has teacher-only days. They have longer school hours. They really, are expected probably to have quite a high standard around how they show up and how they turn up. They have more, chapel days on the weekend, etc., etc. So the boys were feeling really put out by the fact that the girls again got Thursday out. So I got home on Thursday night, and Kaleo's got these, a ring bound, like a speech set of notes, and he says, "Can I talk to you, Mum, Dad? I want to talk to you. I've got something to discuss." He's 7. Takes us up to the bedroom. He's sitting on the bed. He's like, "This is going to be fun." And he goes through the 5 reasons why he shouldn't have to go to school the next day when the girls didn't have to go to school. So, I mean, it was great. It was funny things like, I'll get to spend more time with you in the morning. You get to sleep in, so you don't have to take us to the school bus, which was a win. He said he'd make us bacon and eggs for breakfast, another win. The next one was, he was the only kid all week that had homework every single night, and he got it done. He hadn't complained, it was actually true as well, which is quite impressive for him. I can't remember what the other reasons were. Anyway, there were 5 reasons. So all the kids, Ellie and I, sitting on the floor as he's giving us his reasons. And then we got to the end of it, and I was like, I don't always want to be the good guy. Deep down, I just want to give it to my baby boy, But I turned around, I was like, I can't make this decision, From my perspective, I say no, but how this family needs to work is that we need to have a voting system. So ultimately, you kids are 1 vote. The 5 of you are 1 vote. In our family, Ellie's 1 vote and I'm 1 vote. My vote is no. The kids' vote is obviously yes. So Ellie, this is on you. So it turns to him, because I didn't want to have to. I just don't want to always have to give them stuff, right? So it turns to Ellie, and he's like, what? The case study was fantastic, but there's got to be some ground rules here. So what chores are you going to do around the house tomorrow? I want breakfast, but also I want you to bring me in lunch. So the kids then had to, agree to bring us in lunch, walk the dogs, and come and work in the office for the afternoon. Actually, that was just going to be a shambles, right? You can't get anything done when you've got 5 kids running around the office playing foosball and whatever. So that was the negotiation at this point. And then he's like, and I want 700 press-ups in the next half hour. So then the kids proceeded to
between them,
do
combined
700 press-ups between them in a circle on the floor. And it started off with them doing 10 each, and then it got slower and slower. And then the little ones were doing rounds of 20, while the big ones were still stumbling through 5. It was actually quite impressive to watch. But they got their 700 press-ups done. They made us bacon and eggs. They turned up with our lunch at the office. They walked the dogs. They had a day off school. Don't know what the excuse was to school about why the boys weren't there, but, it's, I don't know how that segued into that, but
that's a great story.
That's our environment, that's the household that they're getting raised in, and it's, you don't just get a simple, can I have the day off school tomorrow because the girls have got it off, sure, that's an optionality, but where's the why behind it all? What is the sacrifice you've got to make for us to actually want to go down that path and enable that for you?
Yeah.
So
That's awesome. Do you ever crash?
I do, yeah.
Do you?
100%, yeah. I'm a crasher.
When's this? What does a crash look like for you?
A crash looks like an entire day or two in bed where I'm just absolutely tanked, bottomed out. It's probably my worst habit is the fact that I go to a crash. Yeah, I'm not good at managing that. So
Is that Ellie good at sort of handbraking you or pulling the reins in, or how do you balance each other out?
Handbrake.
No shit. That's the impression I get.
But so's he.
Yeah.
Between the two of us, I mean, it's hard to put a handbrake on him and me. So we're just on that.
What would he say your best and worst traits are? You reckon?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe you can find a friend and ask him.
What about him? What would you say his best and worst are?
His absolute best trait is his positivity and his desire to just make things happen around him. Like, he shows up 110% all the time. His worst trait is that he gets out of bed with that attitude in the morning and he wakes up with such high energy when I'm a really slow morning person.
I find that difficult to believe.
Oh, I'm a late nighter.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. I'll stay up and I'll work until 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, you know. I had this weekend, it was so lovely. We just fully relaxed. And I picked up a book on Saturday morning and I finished it on Saturday night. So, I finished it on Sunday night at 1 a.m. last night, and I was still quite happy just getting through that book, right? Like, that's my happy place, is getting right late into the night. So mornings are a struggle.
So if you guys are watching like a TV show or a movie, which I'm guessing you don't do all that often, are you good at like just doing that one thing at a time, or are you constantly on a device or doing a second thing at the same time?
Yeah, I'm definitely a sinner for that. But hey, look, so's the next generation, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I can, you see children on like 3 different devices at one time, and I mean, it's quite scary.
And so are all the kids going over to the wedding? Are they all going to be there?
Yeah, of course. They're
awesome.
Excited.
It's so fun that you can have them as part of it.
It's actually really special. It's actually really, really special, and just being able to have them, A, give the blessing for it, but B, be able to be part of those memories it's really beautiful.
That's cool. Who's going? Is Dan or Richie going, or anyone?
Oh, you just are so nosy, aren't you?
A little bit. Don't answer that. Don't answer that.
So much.
I'll wait until it's a new idea. Or
oh gosh, let's hope not.
No, yeah. Are you concerned about that aspect of it, keeping it quiet or anything, or
I don't.
What's your ground rules around that?
You've got to control what you can control, and the media is not something that I can necessarily control. So, yeah.
Yeah, and does that mind
you? Have you got some tips and tricks for me?
What? No, I've been terrible as well. You just can't get too wound up about it. I've been trying to tell my partner that, because it's she's sort of been experienced it for the first time just sort of recently, and it's tough. And I tell her, just don't read the comments and stuff. But if you're not used to that, it's easier said than done, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's always easier said than done. And you think about how hard it is for us now, and how difficult it is as adults to be able to cope and deal with that. It's no wonder that children are having so many challenges with their digital connectivity of the world that we live in as well, isn't it? But yeah, my theory is just don't read it. Yeah,
because you told me, because when we sat down, I came up with a couple of fun facts, like about your pet sheep and stuff, and you're like, how did you know that? And I said, I've read it about you.
I still don't understand how you know that.
You don't read, you try to avoid reading anything about yourself?
Yeah.
Just because it's not healthy, or? Or it pisses you off?
I don't see any need. I just, again, it's sort of looking retrospectively. I don't spend any time in that space. I really don't. I'm always moving forward and looking forward. And it's just how I'm programmed. It's how I'm built. But I also think that's one of the best attributes I have, is the fact that I don't get waylaid in the past. And being able to single-mindedly just be forward-focused is really fantastic. So I don't have a desire to read about myself. I don't really like engaging in that space. I don't think I'm anything special. I don't think I'm anything different. And so that for me means that I find all of that quite uncomfortable.
Yeah, but you are different and special by the fact of like what you've achieved in business, and you're still very young. Like, you've done some incredible things. Oh, yeah, and you should spend time to pause and reflect on just the brilliance of what you and your brothers have done, because it's something special.
If nothing else, it's been an incredible journey. and an incredible set of learnings and lessons, and I'm so grateful that now I get to keep on imparting those on other people.
And if you want to use like a rugby analogy, like you're still in the first half.
Oh yeah, just getting started.
The second half is still to come.
Yeah, that's the exciting thing, isn't it? There's so much more ahead.
Any more kids for you guys, or are you absolutely done with what you've got?
If you asked Ellie that, he would say absolutely. He would love more children.
Would he?
Shop is shut at this end of the deal. I reckon we'll adopt. I definitely think we'll adopt. It's,
really?
Yeah, I just, there's a lot of kids in need. So how do we help, again, some other kids?
What sort of vehicle are you guys rolling around in now? What have you...
That's a really good question, because we legitimately have a van. We have a 12-seater. And it is...
A 12-seater? Oh, so you can have some friends.
And you have no idea how often the 12-seater is full. Like, all weekend, we drive the 12-seater. So it's got the dogs, it's got the kids, it's got Ellie and I, it's got the neighbours, it's got the kids' friends, have got friends again. There's at least 10 kids rolling out of it on any given Saturday. We like that vehicle. It's probably our choice of our choice mode of transportation.
Oh my God, that's a lot.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
It is. It's like a team you guys are running.
Should we pick you up? What are you up to this weekend? We'll just swing on by, jump in. It's got flashing lights, sound system. I mean,
Sounds chaotic. Sounds chaotic. I think I'll pass on this
one. Shall I throw the lambs in there as well, or should we leave them at home?
Oh, yeah. Where are the lambs?
The lambs have gone back to the farm.
Right.
Yeah. We just have them for that. Again, a lesson in life and accountability, and raising animals is a great way to learn to show up and on time and be there and be present and have someone else reliant on you.
So many lessons. Are they?
I grew up as a country kid, right? So I always got to raise lambs, have my ag day experience. So in some ways, I'm just figuring out how I can impart that on the kiddies. And we had a pet duckling as well. That was the most recent pet. So he's been let free in Western Springs.
As part of the lesson with the lambs to teach the kids how to cope with death and disappointment.
No, the lambs have gone back to the farm.
Oh, yeah. And then what? No comment.
They get fattened up, and I do not know what happens thereafter. All I know is that they're very jovial. They're very happy lambs.
Yeah, that's great. Hey, it's been really enjoyable sitting down with you today.
Actually, our first ever lamb that we did get, he's still alive. He's now on a farm in Waiheke, getting very well looked after, and the kids even visit him still to this day. So there has been no lesson on the circle of life as of yet. Yeah, no,
because one of my best mates, Andy, his dad still calls him Percy as a family nickname, and it turns out when Andy was real little, he had a pet sheep called Percy. And then it was a family stitch-up that everyone knew about apart from Andy, but one day they were eating lamb, and it was like, then the whole family started laughing, and Andy was like 6 at the time, and he was eating Percy.
Nick and I...
It was in the 80s.
Nick and I, when we were kids, our pet lambs were called Chips and Chops, and Nick definitely went through that same journey. To the point where he stopped eating lamb altogether. He was just not having a bar of it once he learned about the circle of life. Thanks to elder brothers, right?
Yeah.
It's always the older ones that have got the personal joke on you.
It's character building.
Yeah,
hey,
really is.
How's this been for you today? Has this been okay?
Yeah, it's been fun. I mean, I'm a little bit disappointed that Kanye chose the couch rather than my lap. I thought that I might have broken down the barriers to his acceptance, but not quite.
Kanye!
How old is he?
He's like 10.
Oh.
He's sort of low energy now.
We just need a camera swing round to the pooch, don't we?
Yeah, it's fun. As soon as it's the first dog I've ever had. I've never sort of been into dogs.
Oh, I love dogs.
And as soon as I got him, I started Googling straight away that breed and how long they live for, because I just knew I was going to be devastated when that time comes. Yeah, I'm gonna be a mess for weeks.
Yeah, they're such a part of the family, aren't they?
A massive part of the family.
Yeah. There's something very special about that, though.
So you got the wedding coming up, then honeymoon.
We'll tap it onto the back.
Right.
Yeah, it'll just all get looped in. No time to go somewhere else.
Yeah. Oh, do you guys have like au pairs or nannies who?
We've got the most. I've just got some incredible women around me. From Brittany, who's my EA, to our nanny that helps out with the kids. We're very, very fortunate having people that just. It takes a village to raise a family, right?
100%.
It does. And I remember so deeply how closely tied we were to our neighbours when we were all growing up, and how everyone just pulled together and allowed for that support. And yeah, we've got the most incredible people around us that just take the hard route rather than the easy route when it comes to raising the kids. The hard route being actually following a set of family values that are really important to reflect onto the children when it's not always easy, right? So it's, helping the kids cook dinner once a week, or actually them doing the dishes rather than doing them for them, which is always far more messy with more broken plates and more water on the floor than it is if you did it yourself. But it's those moments in time that are really important. Or you pack your own bag, and when you've forgotten your lunchbox, we're not showing up with it. It's the hard moments to actually have to live by. But when you find the right people that are happy to support you in that journey, it goes a really long way, I think.
I love that. Oh, there's so many lessons.
Citizens.
Oh, and what about what are you going to do with your name? Your name's, I feel like
You're
it's sort
so
of like
nosy.
Is that nosy?
It's so good. I mean, this is what you get to do, isn't it? You have to wait and see.
Okay. Because I feel like your name's sort of a brand in a way, and so that'll be interesting.
I kept it first time round, so what am I going to do second time round?
Yeah. How do you? I've been married before as well. I'm kind of gun shy to do it again, but
I said that as well. But when it's easy and it's right, it's easy and it's right. And I think for us and the family, it's really important to solidify that family unit. The kids want it. The kids desperately want it, and that's such a neat part of our journey in the sense that they're actually helping to push that forward.
Yeah.
So, I always said the same thing. I've done it once. I don't need to do it again. But I think when you find the right person, it's easy. The decision makes itself.
He is the right person, eh? I can see it in your eyes.
Yeah, he's amazing. He's such a good man.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. We had some run-ins when I was on the radio. So he broke.
I can imagine you doing that.
He broke his jaw once. There was a jaw breaking thing, and then we got our producer to do like a character. So we said we had an interview with Ali Williamson.
Are you about to tell me that you attacked him when he had his jaw screwed shut? This reflects quite badly on you, Dom.
No, I forget what happened exactly, but I think we saw it in a media thing, and he was like, "Oh, you guys took the piss out of me," blah blah. But I've always admired him. Like he had that sort of character that most rugby players don't have.
Yeah, he's got a big personality.
I think he was sort of misunderstood, by a lot of the media.
But then he's very well understood by all of his friends and family. So again, doesn't matter what the media says and how they want to portray any scenario is really, it comes down to whether you want to read it or not and engage in it. And just being, as long as you know who you are and having conviction in yourself, that's how you've got to power through any of that side of things. Because the media is always going to sensationalise whatever they can, aren't they?
Absolutely. Take people how you find them.
Yeah.
Rather than just believe what you read.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And show up to be accepting of people and want to learn about them.
Anna Mowbray, thank you so much for your time today.
You're so welcome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, bloody great. How's it been? Not too you've done a lot of business podcasts. This is your first sort of podcast about you as an overall person.
Yeah. It was fun.
Yeah,
it was fun. We went down through a few different alleyways. You tried to dig some personal nitty bitty bits out of me, but
I feel like I got told off a couple of times. I felt like I was the as seen on TV guy in the courtroom. I wouldn't want to fuck with you.
Do we get to spin it around now, and I get to interview you?
Absolutely not. Fun. Get your own podcast. Yeah, no, maybe next time if you can fit it into your incredibly hectic schedule.
I'll find time. You just let me know.
Anna Mowbray, thank you so much.
Thank you.